Matt, the second practical tip you really wanted to impress upon our audience today at your lecture was when you're considering trying to facilitate a time of worship or shared music, consider the genre. Consider the type of music that you're singing. Tell us more about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, so I think for a lot of youth ministries these days, maybe the answer is relatively obvious. Maybe it's not. It depends on the environment. But my suggestion, at least certainly at the beginning, would be start with a contemporary genre. Now, of course, contemporary means a million different things in our kind of divided contemporary world. It could mean rock, it could mean R&B, it could mean hip hop, it could mean Latin music, it could mean any number of things. But we'll pick one of those. But the question I always want to know whenever I go to a place that uses contemporary worship music, I always want to ask them, why are you using contemporary music? I'll tell them, look, I'm on your side. I just want to know, why do you think you're doing this, right? And I'll tell you, at least the answers I'm hoping not to hear is because it's hip, because it's cool, because it's what the people want. I don't, especially when it comes to youth ministry, we're never going to be hip or cool anyway. So let's leave that aside. The reason to do a contemporary genre, I think, is because this is the vernacular of the people, especially when the people are young people. And we know this is a great inheritance from the Protestant tradition that vernacular translation isn't just an issue of not putting up a stumbling block. I mean, that's important, right? Like, you don't want to put a kind of language barrier between your youth and this encounter with God that you want them to have in this musical worship experience. But even more than that, we know that when you do vernacular translation well, you actually end up kind of sanctifying the everyday. The world itself becomes sacred by taking up the kind of plain everyday things and making them vessels of the sacred. So there's something actually really, really important and profound about using music like the music that kids are listening to on the radio, or if possible here and there, the actual music that kids are listening to on the radio. Every once in a while, you're gonna run across a song, you think, I can't believe this is actually on the radio. Maybe sometimes there's a Christian artist behind it who had some crossover appeal, but sometimes it's just somebody singing about a deep, important theme about love or justice or whatever it is, relationship, and it's just profound and true. And boy, you think I could use that in a worship experience. But whatever it is, I think you want to start with a contemporary genre, something that the kids are going to recognize, are going to relate to, and are going to help them begin to kind of see these latent redemptive possibilities within the culture that they're a part of. After that, I actually think if you start getting good at that and kind of get a contemporary idiom kind of worked out for your group, you'll have your own dialect of that contemporary language that's appropriate to the size of group that you have and the mix of people you have. When you start getting good at that, I think at that point, then, by all means, I think you'll have the requisite tools at that point to then go into the tradition of the church and then do that translation work and say, boy, these hymns are amazing. There's a reason that they've stuck around for centuries. But I'd say it's step two, not step one. I think it's sometimes a bridge too far to try to say, we're going to try to start worshiping together with these young people, and we're going to start with some music that's hard for them to do. And boy, I don't really know what I'm doing yet with music and worship, and I'm going to try to do, it's actually very hard to take an old hymn and try to put it in a contemporary idiom. It's hard to do that well. So I save that for the second go around, but I think it's an important resource, and it's something great to avail yourself of as things get going.